I went to go see Minions first thing in the morning on Friday. It was the first day it was out, and you know what? It was one of the more crowded theaters I've been in about 6 months. Early bird ticket sales to a kids movie in the middle of summer.
Wait, what day did you go see this? Friday?
Friday,
On
Friday
an early
morning.
bird, and you had like a full theater, huh?
Yeah,
Even
like
in the summer, I wouldn't imagine that people
well,
are waking up that early on a Friday.
they would wake up early if they were going to save a little bit of money, and they did.
That's true. That's true.
Plus, it's a great way to start a day and get kids kind of exhausted, and then like they've been watching for a while. And now it's like, okay, I'm tired. I watched that whole movie, and it's not a long movie. It's like an hour, hour and a half, and it's charming. I know we just watched me react to the voice acting in it, but I gotta say, the overall aesthetic, the attitude, and the sense of humor, everything about it is in complete opposition to Pixar. It's really
Yeah.
equally good animation, but they focus on completely different things. One thing that I did mention before is these are cartoons. Like there's nothing real about them. We look at the the features of the humans. They're caricatures. Everyone's a caricature. Even the minor characters, like they have these big odd features that make them stick out. The villains, super caricature, giant hair, um, absurd clothing, and it's like this is what cartoons were meant to be. Let alone the minions, who I don't even really know what they are, but we just sort of accept them as being these
Yeah.
things.
They give
And
him
they
like an
really,
origin story in the last Minions movie, and that
I
alone they
know,
had so much fun with. I just love watching that part of the movie.
I know. And again, it's like they just sort of arrive out of the ocean. They don't really, and they go a little bit further into how they got involved with GRU. All it is a line of dialogue and a scene where GRU, as a kid, he just goes, "Thank, I know you answered my want ad," So he just put out a help wanted ad, and all of these minions show up in his front yard, crying in the rain, asking for a job, and
Wow.
in the end, he goes, "I like your persistence. You get the job." And it's like not everything has to be this really meaningful, but like there was some good there's a good lesson in that. It's like, yeah, stand out in the rain, apply for the job, be steadfast, and like do your best. There was some really stupid humor about Otto the minion trading this, the central artifact of like the movie, which is like a necklace. He trades it for a pet rock because it takes place in the 70s. And so
Yep.
his infatuation with the pet rock is ridiculous. But it took, it's got, it stands in, again, complete opposition to Lightyear, which had almost no sense of humor and levity. There were a couple bits with Taika Waititi's character, but Illumination doesn't seem to be as interested in teaching us how to be good people as much as it is putting on a fun show. And it was entertaining.
That's what I like about their animation. It's sort of okay. So just to give you guys some more background, actually, Illumination is under the Comcast, the NBC Universal umbrella, and they actually merged it with DreamWorks Animation, so it's sort of like all under overseen by the same
I
head of
didn't know that.
studio. So so basically, what that means is you're getting some of the same creative minds working on this series of movies now, where Illumination started off as its own thing, and they still obviously
Hmm.
have a lot of those people there, but it's got some of the same pedigree now in terms of the people working on these movies as the ones who worked on Shrek. And
Gotcha.
so I fully expect. I think there's a certain, like you said, there's a certain sense of we're just here to have fun with these cartoons who are here to be wacky and I mean there's heartfelt messages intertwined. I think the first two Despicable Me movies are some of the best animated films of the last decade and a half. The third
They
one
were
not so
fun, but
much.
yeah, they weren't empty of any,
Right.
meaning. And
Exactly. I
yeah,
just feel like sometimes Pixar with some of their movies gets a little too deep into the idea of kind of getting across like a thematic message or trying to teach kids a lesson or not even for kids, it's just maybe the adults who are watching it get some more. There's too much focus, I think, on telling a very well constructed multi-layered story that gets across some sort of thematic message or messages. I'm not saying they preach to you, they don't usually, but with these Illumination movies and Minions being the latest example, they're just like, we're here to entertain you, you know? Maybe there is a
and
message
that's
the characters go through an arc and there is something you're gonna walk away with. But ultimately, you're coming to the movie theater to have fun with your kids and it's a family movie and sometimes it's okay to just be that. It doesn't have to be much more than that.
you know what? It not only does it not have to be, like, really, that's what animation, that's what entertainment is about, especially kids animation. You know, we go so I go any place I go. If I go onto a website, if I go into a supermarket, if I anywhere I go, people are telling me how to think and how to behave. And it was such a refreshing experience to go in and be like, yeah, he just pulled his pants down and he made a joke about a fart. And it was, GRU is a rebel as a kid. He goes in with a stink bomb into Jaws, and he throws the stink bomb in there and clears the movie theater out just so he can sit back and enjoy the movie by himself. You know, even the idea of Despicable Me, like, oh, I guess I'm bad, aren't I? Like, that's totally different than I'm trying to be the best person I can possibly be, and here's how I'm gonna do it. Boy, I faced a challenge and now I'm better. It's not that. And yet, young Gru, grows as a character and he has a hero and he has this whole fixation on being a villain, but that's his thing. And he pursues it not because he thinks other people are going to think he's cool. It's just him being him. And I think a kid watching that isn't going to go, I want to be bad. They're going to go, oh, I'm going to be comfortable when I want to do the things that I want to do. And
Do,
I'm going to
do,
pursue it even if everybody thinks I'm a loser for it.
I have a question, right? Like that this movie, and you bring up a couple of good points that I wanted to kind of touch upon. This movie technically is a prequel to like those Despicable Me movies, right? The character,
Yeah.
and when we see Gru as like most, I mean, some a guy who he's fun to be bad or is good to be bad, sort of as his mantra.
Yeah.
And there's a certain coolness to him, like that he's so comfortable in his own skin, he doesn't care that he's a villain, and he's somehow enjoyable to just you know he's a bad guy, but you can't look away when he's like torturing other people. Um, and then you get to see him grow into a much more heartfelt, much more relatable father of these three adopted daughters, and then
Yeah.
he has his whole family and blah blah blah. But this movie is obviously taking place before a lot of that character development has happened or is meant to have happened. So how do
Yeah.
you? Because I'm somebody who desperately wants to see this movie, but I just unfortunately haven't had the time between Stranger Things and For All Mankind and Miss Marvel and everything else I'm watching. I just haven't had the chance to go to the theater. But so I'm asking you, how do you think they balance that part out of it, where this is a pre-Despicable Me trilogy, Gru, who somehow still has to be the hero of the movie, but at the same time is like technically a bad guy.
You know what? They actually did a really good job with it because they established Gru as, a child to a single parent, basically, and she's
Right.
dating like a guru or something. But, he lives with his mom and he doesn't have a father figure. And so he idolizes this villain. And in the end, he gets to team up with this guy and work for him and learn from him. And that's where they sort of plant the seed of, yeah, you can learn from your hero, and your hero can be a kind of father figure to you. And it doesn't matter if your hero is a villain. This is. I think it does a nice job of bridging the gap between villain and father figure and showing how that can even compute in his mind by the time he gets to that point. This really is the rise of GRU as a character because it shows you can be this childish, villain-centric kid and still be a good role model to your children.
Okay. And the other question then would be how much of the movie, because I know the first Minions movie was, despite all the other characters that were in there, including the villain played by, I think it was Sandra Bullock voiced the female antagonist in the first one. It
Mm.
was largely a very much you could tell it was a Minions movie because it was about them. A lot of the slapstick comedy gags were like the focus of the film. Does this movie become more about GRU the longer it goes, or is it still large? Is it still the focus of the narrative stay with the minions?
There are some points where it feels a little unbalanced, but generally I'd say they pay equal attention to the minions and GRU. I think it's more about GRU, and I think this will serve to bridge those two franchises together, even though they're the same franchise. But you know, we focus more on these three main minions, and it's always them, but like as clones, I guess. Um, and I don't know. There's a whole kung fu training sequence that the minions are learning kung fu. It's
I can just imagine how fun that would be to watch.
it was fun, but it's. I think the GRU aspects of it are more compelling. The minion stuff is just funny. It's just silly, funny, goofy stuff, and I like that.
Okay, so what you're saying is this is a movie you'd recommend?
Yeah, if you have to choose between this and Lightyear, see this.
Which is surprising, honestly. I wouldn't think. Well, here's the thing. I always thought because they're two very different kinds of movies. Like I never
Oh yeah,
would have said that there's a you can't really make a one-to-one comparison on so many fronts. But if you were to simply say which is a better time at the movies, you would say this is a better time
yeah.
at the
If
movies.
you're gonna take all of your kids to go see an animated movie this month, this should be the one you go see.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've got me convinced because I not that I needed a ton of convincing, mind you, because I have been excited. I love the franchise. It's like the first Despicable Me movie to me is still as revolutionary as Shrek was. I mean, you can only be Shrek can only, there's only, I'm not saying it's Shrek level, but because Shrek was a absolute phenomenon of a
Shrek was its
franchise.
own thing. Yeah,
But Despicable Me is carved out like a niche in modern day animation where Disney and Pixar animation dominates and they have a certain brand of storytelling, which as I mentioned earlier, I feel like Minions and Despicable Me franchise in general as a whole, it's the epitome of the type of animated movies where you go to the movie with your family, you just have a fun time. It's like, and then
yeah,
Illumination Entertainment in general, whether it's this franchise or Sing or The Secret Life of Pets. I know these movies generally don't draw the same level of Rotten Tomato scores that some Pixar movies might.
yeah.
They don't
But
draw the same acclaim, but I just you just want to like watch a movie, animated movie, and have fun. I feel like, especially if you're a fan of like the era of cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes, where they're not trying to tell you some highfalutin story that has some like
No, I
thematic lesson. It's
I'm
just
so
fun
I've reached a
animation.
point where I'm really bored with overly complex, overly deep, or just convoluted content. I like things that are made to entertain. I think that's really how I can uh, sum up my aesthetic taste for this year. I'm just done with being burnt out on trying to follow a complex plot or super deep story like character development. Just get me there. Let me have a good time and let me leave the theater with a smile on my face.
Yeah, that's kind of I like it. Because I think that's kind of the appeal of a movie like Minions, is the kind of the appeal behind the unbearable weight of massive talent. Because
Mm-hmm.
the premise is simple, the story is pretty simple. Top Gun Maverick, I think the best example of a very simple story, but one that earns your attention and then just is a heartfelt, touching. It's not trying to like give you some kind of convoluted plot with some large overarching theme that needs to get across or some kind of message that you're supposed to walk away with. It's just there to entertain you. And I think that sense of escapism is what really defines, I think, some of the best stuff Hollywood has done, like
You
all
know,
throughout the years, decades, and
can we call it something other than escapism? Because I
okay,
don't think this is so much as escapism as much as it is um, a chance to come up for air. You
fair,
know,
yeah,
it's levity, but it's not escapism because when we've gone through this. I think we've reached a trend of always trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so when you're at that depth and you're swimming at that depth for that long, it's really nice to just go,
right, yeah, no, and you know what? It totally makes sense how you're describing it because the two biggest genres of film that we have been seeing at the box office, especially in terms of making money and getting all the attention over the last decade and a half, superhero movies,
yep,
which have always tried to find validation by giving them greater meaning than just being a goofy superhero movie. Like if you went to watch Spider-Man 1 or just call Spider-Man or Spider-Man 2 and less so Spider-Man 3, but even hey, I'm a defender of the dancing Tobey Maguire, the emo Peter Parker. I think
I
it's
think in
just goofy
retrospect
fun.
we all like that.
It's goofy fun, right? Or like Batman and Robin before superhero movies had to be this grounded, realistic, and it's in a manner of speaking, it's the entire genre seeking validation from Hollywood. And I
Yeah.
think the same applies to that other half of that equation, which is movies like live action adaptation of Disney films or Disney Pixar animated
I am
movies,
so
which are all
ready. I'm
trying to
so
like
ready for Hollywood to have a sense
elevate
of
the
humor again.
yeah. It's in an era when all of those movies are trying to elevate their art forms or their genres to be considered
Yeah.
for serious prestige level
Stop it.
storytelling. These kind of movies like Top Gun Maverick and Minions and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, they just say, well, not every single one of those movies has to be prestige level content. You just want to have fun and go to the movies and just it's summertime,
Yeah.
You're not trying to watch
It's
something
summertime,
heady all the time.
and we've been through
Yeah,
so much these last couple of years. It'd be nice to just sit in an air-conditioned room and laugh.
exactly. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. I think you summed it up so perfectly right there. That's all you need. It's the simple things in life that we have to learn to appreciate once more because haven't had those for so long. Yeah.
I agree. Now we transition gracefully and smoothly into the next topic of the show, but not before telling you to follow us, like and subscribe, and be a part of the Oh So Curious family. You're our family. You're our brother. We adopted you. Congratulations. You're part of our family. You didn't have any say in it. Actually, you do. You can follow us. But we're fun people. You're a fun person. Let's have fun together. Thanks for watching.